38. This is an interesting one. LordQuadros' Metal Gear Solid. Episode 8 came out in this past 6 months, and I was a little surprised to not be able to rank LordQuadros a little higher. If it was the same quality as Episode 7, I still think this would be in the top 10. But Episode 8, I think, was a little bit of a fall back from that. In general, it was a bit of a decline, I think, from his typical, awesomeness. I do think that his show is really good. Solid Snake is a tough character. He's got that low voice. It's hard to really get him to be funny. He does sort of let the other quirkier characters play off him, and I think this episode was just a little too much of him. He was a little weaker. Sniper Wolf was a rare misfire, I think, for Whip of Alchemy, who's usually great. I just think with the accent and everything, and just like the weird nature of that character being brought in for the episode, just ended up not working for me. I think that how the characters came off, Liquid also in this episode, just not too funny. What saves it, though, is Otakon, who is hilarious in this episode. Absolutely saves it for me. The commercial bit there in the middle, also particularly fun, and absolutely do save the episode. The way that the character worked, the comic lines were landing. Everything out of Otakon's mouth was really landing, and even Snape got in a few of his good reactions to some of the stuff Otacon was saying. But in general, I think this episode just sort of dragged a little bit. The characters just weren't popping for me, certainly. So I think that this show is really fantastic. The reason why it's not higher on the list is because I think it was just a little bit of a slower episode. Episode 7 was ridiculously good, so maybe just having that in my head sort of affected it as well. So that 38. So show 37, as we plug along, is HagarenAbridged's FMA, Hagane no Abridged, as they call it. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 were all put out in the past 6 months. This was one of the more hotly anticipated Full Metal Alchemist Abridged out there. As it was coming out, people were saying, this one looks like it's going to really be one of the better ones. And it is. The voice acting is insane. I mean, it's really, really good. I mean, they sound like the original actors. This is one of the shows I have the advantage of actually having seen. And it's fantastic. The Al, Majhal in episode 1, Maze is great. Bald, the train guy in episode 2, really great. Roy and Riza, a little weaker, but I mean, when you're bringing voice talent like this to the table, it really shows. You don't need comic bits to sound really good. I mean, everything is landing, and unfortunately, that does bring out when the comic bits aren't working, because a lot of the laugh lines aren't landing, and it's the fault of the writing, not the voice acting. The voice acting is you are hearing people inflecting things properly as if they're these big jokes, and unfortunately they're not. Now it works because the inflections and the acting is so good. I mean, it sounds like the original actors are doing it for quite a few of the characters, and it's very fun. Majhal, I mentioned, is a good character. That's obviously not the original interpretation, but the joke works with that. He sounds like the pedophile from Family Guy, and it worked, ultimately. The long, silly rants in this show are some of the better comic bits. Other than that, when it tries to be a specific joke, the inflection works and the voice acting works. The writing typically doesn't follow through on that. But the long, silly rant stuff where someone just goes off on this silly tear that's supposed to be funny, that does work, and there's a bunch of those in episode 2. There's the song spoof of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air song, which I just want to mention. Tried and true, it does work, but again, what you're getting is, the good execution on a slightly less crisp script, ultimately. A really, really good bit, just sort of, I've been sort of ragging on the crispness of the comedy, the Welcome Back Kotter spoof that also riffs on the Scrubs episode, where they mention that song. worked really well in episode 3. So hopefully, it keeps improving. I don't think it's been out for a while. Hopefully it continues, because that would be nice to see the show continue to grow. And now for 36, which will be the final show that I mention. Again, all these shows can be found, links to them can be found in the description there, so check them out. The final one that I will mention in this video is show 36, X-Lite09X's Aquarion. Now, I'm going to have to flip my page of notes to keep reading. Aquarion, particularly fun. I'm not familiar with this, so I did have some trouble following the plot. That was one thing I had some problem with, but the jokes were landing. There weren't, I think, enough of them to warrant the length of the episodes, but the jokes that they had did start to land, which was particularly fun. The characters were good. Again, the voice acting was not like this stellar stuff that you've seen in some of the shows that I've previously mentioned, but it doesn't need to be when you have crisper writing, and that's definitely what this showed. Again, that there was a lot of space between the jokes, and especially at the beginning, it was a little hard to follow the plot. But other than that, this definitely shows a lot of promise. It's not, up to the rapid fire, comic line stuff that you get in more seasoned shows. But I think that there's definitely a lot of promise here. I think it's already ahead of some of the previous stuff that X-Lite09X has done, like PMK, Peacemaker Kurigane. So I think that it's off to really a good solid start. That's episodes 1 through 4 that have come out already. And hopefully, it keeps going and keeps getting better, because I think that is definitely a possibility. So again, for Aquarion, just a really good sense of the comic timing. You really do get a very sharp ability to land the material, which is pretty cool. So within the next few days, I'll be coming out with the next few videos, which should take us into the 20s of these, and by the new year, we'll be really wrapping up the final Life Abridged countdown. I know I'm retiring from the countdown game after this, but I hope you stay with me to keep watching this a very different Life Abridged countdown as we go through the top 40 series to put out material between June and November of 2009. Thank you so much. I hope you had a great holiday and have an awesome beginning of a new decade. Let's all hope it's better than the last one.